only I can. But you took my insights, I'll take you back to hell. I'm feeling every chance I'm gonna take back someone I could never be. I'm nothing like you, strange as a name.
Hey, Vertigo Nation, welcome back to another episode. And across the table from me today is Andy, who was on the Grinch Stole Vertigo, or How the Grinch Stole Vertigo. But welcome back again, my friend.
Thanks. I'm glad to be back. A lot's happened since the last time I was here, just personally with both of us. So
oh my God.
We have 3 hours of conversation to do, but we'll try and keep it short here today.
Well, we've already talked about a good 45 minutes already, I think. We got some of it out of the way. But yeah, man. So actually, your episode was incredible. A lot of people had a lot of fun with it. Of course, we also touched on some serious stuff in there too. I got a lot of great feedback from it. So thank you so much for coming back, because I actually just like conversing with you, man. So it's a lot of fun, you know what I mean?
I like talking with you too, man. Yeah, I know. I miss it. I miss doing this a lot more than we used to. So.
I know. So even off the pod, we just will have to make plans to because the pod's cool and everything.
Yeah, golfing season's coming around. So,
fuck yeah, man. I'm all about it.
I get to waste time out in the summertime. I love doing that. So
all right.
It's not an issue.
Now, my game is not so hot, I will tell you, because I only started playing golf 2 summers ago, I think. 2 summers ago. I mean, actually, that's a lie. I started playing golf when Sean was like a little kid. Okay. I had, borrowed some clubs, gone out a couple of times, really enjoyed it, loved it. Never took it really serious, never bought any of my own equipment. And then, like 1,000 other hobbies I've had, whatever, right? Yeah. Fast forward a couple of years ago, I think like 2 summers ago, Sean has been playing golf, my son Sean. Yeah. And he's like, Dad, you should come out and play golf. I've got a set of clubs you can borrow, whatever. Mm-hmm. So I went out and I enjoyed myself so much. I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. I literally left there, went to Dick's and just bought the Dick's brand, clubs, Top Flight or whatever, I think, right? Bought a set of clubs and called him and said, I bought a set of clubs, so I guess we better start golfing a little bit more regularly. I got to justify this purchase,
My experience with golf's about the same. I started playing right after high school. Okay. And by playing, I think I went 2 or 3 times a year. And I would always have to borrow clubs. I think at one point I used women's clubs. Right. At one point. So, because I was never committed like that. I would always golf with a buddy that would golf, and I would use his clubs while we were on the course. Yeah. So I did that for 5 years. I golfed 3 times a year for 5 years. Okay. And every time I went out, it was always for a tournament or something like that. And I always had fun. And then I sat there, I was like, oh, I can't make time for this. I would always say that. Because, it's a time-consuming sport. It is. And I always had the concern, like I do with everything else, me and my ADHD self, that I would get too committed to it and then get sick of it and hop out of it. Oh my God. Dude. So the burnout from it is what I consider. So, but finally, I think it was the year before last, or even last year, I finally got on eBay and I was like, I'm going to buy a set because that's going to make me want to play more. Exactly. Because I want to do something that I occasionally enjoy once in a while. Yeah, right. And last year, I think I played probably 24 times. And especially, I was working for myself full time last year. Yep. So I was I had a buddy that would always go out at 9 a.m. or something like that. Oh, yeah. And he would always ask me on a Thursday or something like that. And he would always ask me, "Oh, yeah." Which I want
that life. I got to be honest. I'd love to just be able to go golf at 9 a.m. on a Thursday.
Last year I did that a ton, and dude, I loved it. There's nothing better than you, a buddy, and I enjoy drinking, but it's you're not drinking at 9 a.m. You're just going out to the golf course, and you're doing something active outside. Yep. And all you focus on is that game at the time. You forget about everything else. And I like it so much because it's a lot different than other hobbies I pick up, like woodworking or anything else I've ever done. I've been able to just obsess over it and just do it until I'm sick of it. You can't. I've found out you can't do that with golf because it's just not possible.
No, it's an ADHD cure.
Yeah, because like you have to still live. Yep. So like you have to go to work. You can't just not go to work.
Right.
So like you're still at max. Like if you're working a full-time job, maybe playing golf 2, if you're lucky, 3 times a week.
Yep.
So,
agreed.
And you're only doing that for 6 months a year if you're lucky. So really, like it is like an ADHD cure.
It is. I want to pause just for a minute because you said so many things in just that 2-minute like. Whatever. So first things first, we got to touch on the ADHD thing, man, because I just started really like researching and kind of reading about this, and I think we talked a little bit about it on how the Grinch
touched on it. It was more of a joke, but nothing. Yeah.
But I'm telling you, man, I am full tilt. Like I'm pretty sure that I have adult ADHD, undiagnosed, of course, but I'm pretty sure. But the other thing is about hobbies too, and I wish Minna was in on this podcast because she would tell you I have done thousands. So Minna and I have been together 15 years. So that's not even talking about my life before that. Yeah. But just with her, I've probably done, God, I got into beer making. I was doing craft beer for a while. I remember you telling me about that. Yeah, whiskey. I was doing On the Rocks podcast, talking about whiskey, cigars. You can still see cigars everywhere.
Yeah, I've done that with cigars.
Yeah, there's cigars here. And when we go over to the apartment side, I got humidors, like really? But the problem is, and you said it perfectly, I get into a hobby and I get into it so fucking hard that I burn myself out from it. Like, so when I was doing beer, I was making, and this is the other thing, and this goes with the other personality flaw of being a perfectionist or being OCD, one of the, whichever one, they're kind of the same, but I got so into making beer that I thought like my beer needed to taste like, I don't know, what's a craft, I don't know. Magic Hat number 9, like
even a Yingy.
Yeah.
Something
like,
that you could like equate it to. Yeah.
Exactly, right? Like, hey, I'm brewing this beer, and it should be a Sam Adams, right? And then, it's not that because I don't have a mash tun, and I got to make a mash tun, and then it's like
can I do that?
Oh yeah. And then I go down the rabbit hole, and then I'm in the shed, and I'm taking these igloo. Like sports
and then you're watching YouTube videos till 2 a.m. trying to figure out,
fucking burn myself right out. And then man, it'll be like, why do you not make beer anymore? And I'm like, I don't want to look at fucking beer. Yeah, because I just
no, and it's tough. It's definitely the worst part. So like I remember the couple times I talked with a therapist or something like that.
Yeah,
they're like, oh well, you're really self-aware. I was like, thanks. I think that's part of the problem.
Yep,
but also it's not, because I'm like sometimes I can like use this superpower I have to like, it's my advantage.
Yeah.
I like trick myself to be like, hey, you enjoy this, so let's do this.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, it does work sometimes.
It does.
90% of the time it fails and it sucks.
Yep.
Because it does suck. Like right now my garage is a fucking disaster. And I want nothing more than to sit in there and just do some woodworking projects that I just enjoy. Because I haven't done anything in the last 4 months that I just like to do.
Right.
I started playing video games again a little bit.
Yeah.
But I get really sick of those really quick.
See, I've never been a gamer.
I really get sick of it. So I grew up, obviously, like in Call of Duty. I'm turning 30, so like right around like when that was super like
man
stuff. So,
Halo probably, right?
Yeah, even Halo. Yeah, we would have Halo parties. Like that was so much fun. So like even now, like I think I can't play more than an hour max.
Yeah,
and then I get sick of it. Even if I try and change like the way I'm playing, because I'm playing Call of Duty, if I try to change the way I'm doing it, like I can't. It's so bad. So like they have, I don't know if you're aware of Call of Duty, but like,
a little bit.
Yeah, so they have obviously like the versus match where you play like 5-on-5 in a small map. I only play small maps because my ADHD needs something for me to be doing 24/7. Yeah. So I can't play Warzone, because to me, I can't imagine sitting there for like 5 minutes and not seeing anyone. It would drive me fucking crazy.
Yeah, no, I'm the same way.
Or like even 2 minutes, like I get bored.
Yep.
I'm like, well, what do I do now?
See, I am the same way. I get bored, but then I also have to admit that I don't have the skill set. I am not good at first-person shooters. I would like to be. Okay. I would love to be. Yeah. I would sit and play Call of Duty with both Maddox and Sean, probably Zach as well. I would play Call of Duty with those guys, and they would fucking crush me, dude. And even actually bringing it up to more recent times, I would play Fortnite. So Sean got me turned on to
that,
well, he turned me on to Fortnite when he was in high school. Like, so God, he's fucking been out of high school for a minute already.
Yeah,
but
7-8 years.
Yeah, so I was playing Fortnite with him, but dude, I'm just not good at. Like, I can run and gun with the best of them, but I can't. Build shit, twirl in the air, do all that.
Would piss
fuck
me
that.
off. I wouldn't be able to do it.
I got to the Deadpool.
That's part of my issue is if I play something I'm not good at, I get frustrated quick.
Yeah, and it's like, so for me, I end up finding myself playing solo games and then playing like, I don't know, like fantasy shit, like, I don't know. Legend of Zelda, shit like that. You know what I mean?
Like
not Elder Scrolls, stuff like that.
You, I think.
What's that?
Red Redemption or something like
that.
Yeah,
okay. Actually, yeah, I did play Red Dead.
I feel like that's a good in between. Like you can.
Yeah. So perfect case in point. There are 2 video game series that I played that I actually finished. Mm-hmm. One was just Uncharted.
Okay.
I did Uncharted. Solo,
well, that was
just
like
a campaign.
No, that's a legendary like campaign though.
Yeah,
it's like one of those like it'll go down 10 years from now. People.
I love that game. Still love that game. The Last of Us. I actually also finished.
I never played that, but I heard that was really good too. Same idea.
And then what was the? Oh my gosh, man! This is where I can't think of the name of the series now. Oh. It's gonna drive me crazy. It'll pop into my head at some point, but it's in the same line of Red Dead
Redemption.
Whatever the fuck it is.
You had it there.
I got it there for a minute. That's what happens when you have speech problems.
Yeah. I also want to ask you, now that we're on the topic, since you can't remember that name, that's something I struggle with. I can't do names.
Oh, me neither.
At all. Which, in my line of work, being horticultural and all that stuff with
customer facing.
It's the worst and most embarrassing thing because people are like, what's that plant? I can tell you what that plant does. I can tell you what that plant's really good at. I cannot tell you the name of it.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating to me. If you tell me your name, it'll probably take a half a dozen times to meeting you before I can remember. And it's the most embarrassing and frustrating thing.
That is so funny. I've never talked about this openly with everybody. I don't know if you noticed at my time at Fulton, but if you notice, I call everybody, hey dude, hey man, hey brah, what? And the reason I do that is because I can't remember names.
I always do sir or ma'am.
Yeah. So, true story. I was down in. So shout out to Real Nutrition in Pulaski, New York. I haven't done a commercial cut for them yet. I need to do one because we're in there so often. So go visit Krista and the ladies down at. I almost said Deja Vu.
No, yeah.
Real Nutrition.
Real Nutrition.
Strike that. Real Nutrition, and you'll find them next to actually Two Broke Moms and the Dollar General. Anyway, I was in Real Nutrition, and there was 2 gentlemen that walked in from Fulton who I clearly recognized. Now, and this is after I'd worked there, so I had already left. Clearly recognized them, and I'm staring at them going, shit. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, hey, what's going on, bud?
Well, the worst thing is I almost introduce myself first because I'm anxious that when they're like, oh, hi, Andy, how are you? And I'm like, fuck.
Yeah, right.
You know me by name.
Who are you, dude?
No, it's the most embarrassing. And it's not even like, it's not because like, I'm always scared because people are like, oh, well, that guy's an asshole. He doesn't remember me or something. And it's not that because like I could remember you. I can remember what you can do. I remember even what you're like and maybe even your kid and what they do, but I can't remember your fucking name.
I know.
Good luck, bud.
Dude, I'm the same. All right. So I'm glad to have met somebody else who's got that. We'll have to look it up.
I assume it's an ADHD.
I was just gonna say that,
but like I've done a good amount of research, but like no one's actually touched on that enough to know. And I can't tell you why it is. Yeah. My memory cannot store things that way though.
No, my file system doesn't work in that way
at all.
And even childhood. I mean, this has been something it's not. I mean, teachers' names, through school and whatnot.
Yeah.
Just took forever to stick for me. Yeah. Classmates' names, whatever.
That's the worst.
But
yeah, thank God I went to a small school because otherwise I really would have been hurt.
Oh, I struggled, man, because I went to Fulton, and not that Fulton's huge but it's huge for Oswego County. Yeah. I mean, I graduated one of 500 kids, which I don't think Pulaski or Sandy Creek.
Yeah, you're times 5.
Yeah.
At least, if not more. Because I think I graduated with like 68 or something. Like that.
So Fulton and Oswego, probably Phoenix, those 3 schools maybe have the numbers. I don't even think Phoenix. Phoenix is
no, yeah, Phoenix
they're
isn't there.
D2, right? they don't. How do they do that?
So it's ABC. So it's like that, and then you have AA, AAA for the bigger ones. So like, Phoenix is like a B.
That's right.
B, C in certain sports. It also varies on the sport too. So
that's right, because we didn't wrestle Phoenix at all. Actually, when I was in high school,
it's weird. Like I know, like even when I was growing up, like Sandy Creek, like football was D, but for basketball we were B, I think, at one point.
Was it?
Which is insane.
Yeah.
But it's like it. I don't know why it varies so much.
I don't either, and I don't know what they are now. Now that you say that, though, I do remember because we were A. I remember we had I remember going to like Rome Free Academy and
they're like 1,100 kids.
Yeah,
they're nuts. They're over 1,000.
Dude, the craziest story I could ever tell when I was wrestling was when we went to Fowler and had to be escorted off the bus into the building. So that was nuts. I'd never seen anything like that.
Yeah, no. So like super eye-opening. I think our senior year. I think it was our senior year for football. We're Class D. We went down for a crossover game to start off the year to a Class C team. It was Syracuse Institute of Technology or something like that.
Okay.
It was an all-black school, not in a bad way or anything like that.
Yeah, no, it just is what it is.
School down there.
Yeah.
We've never, half of us have never played football down there before. When I tell you it was like watching Friday Night Lights in the stands, like good for them. They had the whole crowd show out for them.
Oh yeah, man.
But it was intense. Like we blew them out. I think we won by like 20 or 30, and we
awesome.
We were getting an away game to start the season. We were getting cussed at. I remember my parents were on the sideline, and the cops were like separating the fans because they were like worried about it. And it's like, but like down there now that I ref and stuff, I'm aware that like the Pop Warner programs down there are like that.
Yeah,
they're just very intense. Like the way that they think about football is super intense. I think it's just there's more kids, so it's more challenging just to even get into the sport.
Sure.
So like I think the challenge for that,
and I wonder too,
it's worth more to them.
I wonder. Yes, I was just gonna say I wonder too if it's a way out for some of those kids. Like if you can be
if you can make the team, that's not hard enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I'm not even saying like NFL pro. I'm not even talking about pro. Like if you can be a standout, you know,
you have a chance at going D3 full ride, and that's way better than some other people. That even for me, that would have been crazy. I wish I could have done that.
I remember kids getting scholarships to schools like OCC for the
I got a scholarship to
stuff.
Utica full ride.
Yeah, exactly.
Unfortunately, I couldn't take it because I had my daughter.
Yeah,
18. So that's crazy. But like that would have been. I still wish to this day. I wish I would have been able to.
Yeah. Yeah, Min was accepted to Cornell on a hockey scholarship.
No shit.
Yeah,
she played hockey.
Yeah. Man,
that's awesome. Man, I love women's hockey because I think it is not in a sexist way whatsoever, but I think it's the closest like watching women's hockey is so exciting. It is so exciting. There's a difference between one, but it's like it's so nomical that like it doesn't matter.
No,
it's very enjoyable to watch. Like it's not like women's basketball. Like there is like obviously like people aren't dunking in women's basketball. It is fun to watch guys slam dunk. You know what I mean? There's no taking away. But with women's hockey, it's the same shit, dude. It is fucking fun as fuck.
I compare it to, because obviously I'm a big combat sports fan. I talk about that a lot.
UFC, women's fighting, fucking amazing.
Right. Yeah,
if not better.
That's what I was just gonna say. It's just as equally exciting because there's no fucking difference.
I love watching like when they have like a what's it called? Fight night, whatever it is for UFC, whatever. Mm-hmm. I love watching the women. I remember we went to my buddy's house and we watched one. I think it was Jules's like first or second time watching a round of fights.
Okay.
And she's like, "When's the main show on?" I'm like, "I don't know, 12:31." She's like, "What?" I was like, "Yeah, this is how they do this." She's like, "Really?" She's like, "Are those women fighting?" I go, "Yeah. Watch this."
Yeah.
She goes, "Oh my God."
Yeah.
I was like, "Yeah, no, that they're way more badass than them guys are."
Yeah. Well, like, you know what it is
way
too?
More.
I think it's the lighter weight classes. Like everybody wants to see heavyweights just go at it, but if you think about it, especially now heavyweights in boxing is different than MMA.
Yeah.
I watch MMA because I like grappling.
Yep.
If I want to watch just stand up, I'll either watch BKFC or boxing, which I love those sports too. Yeah. So there's nothing wrong with that. But I watch MMA because I was a wrestler in school. We were talking about. I like grappling. I understand what's going on. You know what I mean?
And the multiple sides of it.
Yeah. So to me, the heavyweights get a little bit boring. Because there's just not a lot unless you're Tommy Aspinall.
One-dimensional. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
So just to get that out of the way, because we don't typically talk about MMA on the podcast unless my son's here because he's an MMA. Oh my God, that dude knows more shit, right?
It's mentioned every
time. Is it? Yeah. Does it come up?
Yeah, it comes up every time.
Okay, well then fuck it. Then I lied. So this is all right, John Jones, Tom Aspinall, is it going to happen?
It needs to happen.
It needs to happen.
I think obviously Dana White's pushing for it. So
which has surprised me. It surprised me because
I think behind closed doors, I think he knows that it's a benefit for the sport. So,
I think he's realized that the UFC fans are clearly over the John Jones running the show. Yeah. And I'm not saying, and listen, I'm not taking anything away from John Jones. I'm not a fan of John Jones.
The issue with fighters is they run out of their legacy so quick. It's not like basketball. You're not LeBron James. You can't play till you're 50.
Right. You've got a short amount of time.
Yeah, it's amazing how in a year of them not fighting, they're not the same fighter they were.
Oh, right. Well, look at what happened with Stipe.
John Jones now is not the same fighter he was.
No.
Even 2 years ago.
He can't keep taking that amount of time off, especially when you're younger, maybe.
Yeah.
When you're past 35,
it's
just now. John Jones is a phenom.
See what happened to Anderson Silva? Same idea.
It's true.
And I hate for the way he went out like that because
I know.
But that's what it is. You can't be that kind of fighter and be that old.
Yep.
He wasn't even that old, but be that old in the sport.
Well, listen,
because it'll show. His timing, his reaction just wasn't there, and that's why he got caught. Especially with the kind of fighter he was, the arrogant fighter. Your timing has to be on cue because if it's not, you're fucked, dude.
Well, and I've even noticed a difference. Now, listen, I mean, I'm not anybody. I'm not a pro fighter, not even amateur, but I trained and enjoyed it. And I can notice a difference when I was doing, Taekwondo and all of that at 25. Then I got boxing really hard at 35. And sure, I was in great shape, but you notice a difference with your body just doesn't react the same. Somebody wanted me to spar when I was boxing, and I was like, sure, man, because I'm thinking sure, I'll spar, right? I've sparred 100 times, that's not a problem. We'll touch gloves, whatever. And I noticed then how rusty I was, and within it wasn't even 30 seconds, 15, 20 seconds in, I was like, where's this fear coming from? I've actually got a little fear of getting tagged right now, and so there's things that come with age,
Definitely. Yeah, because I in the military, you do your basic shit that everyone knows.
Sure.
But they give you the option to do additional grappling and go to competitions and shit like that. So I was doing that, and I remember doing that at 21.
Yeah.
I remember feeling great. We held a class for that. Even now, I think it was 6 or 7 years ago. So we're talking only 5 or 6 years difference from when we did that. Dude, within 30 seconds, I couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
I mean, my God, yeah. It's just it's crazy the amount that you need to maintain.
Yep.
People don't understand, you get in a fight, it's every single muscle in your body maintaining, working with your brain to stay alive, ultimately. Yep. It's exhausting.
Well, and there's so much that goes into it. I don't know how to better put it than how you already
unless
did,
you do it. Yeah. It's your brain and your body. Everything has to work together perfectly.
Yep.
For you
and even just moving. So, for example, I remember telling my boys, right, you don't even have to throw a punch. You got to move, right? Just move it. But just moving is exhausting.
Yeah. Especially the way
do that for 30 seconds when the adrenaline's up and whatnot. You're going to be breathing.
Yeah. So in
15 seconds even.
Yeah, in AIT, so our additional training.
Yeah.
After basic in the Army, that's where you go.
Yeah.
AIT.
Okay.
So My AIT was really long. It was like 6 months.
Oh, shit.
Because of the job I did. So we were in Georgia for 6 months.
What was your MOS?
94 Echo. So ComSec and systems repair. So radio, fixing radios, trucks, a bunch of shit.
In the field.
Anything. Yeah, anything you can think of. So, but we were, so Frank Richardson which was one of my roomies, and a couple other guys. Regardless, ton of fun. We were in the empty room. So it was like, we were in temporary building. It was a metal building. Think of it's like a college dorm. There was 4 beds in a room, and then we had to share a shower. That's all it was. So when there was an empty room, that would be the boxing room.
Oh, cool.
So we would have fight nights and shit. So we would go in there and spar. And Frank Richardson, he was a 5'7" black guy that was the most strong and athletic, stout 5'7" guy that you could fit in a frame.
Yep.
And this dude was so fast. Like, I remember being like, oh, that guy's athletic as fuck. Like, you could just tell he was like, but when I saw him box for the first time, he didn't touch this other dude he was sparring with, didn't touch him. He exhausted him by just dodging him for a minute straight.
Yep.
And the other guy he was like, and then all he did was, and guy was like, oh, like he literally put his gloves down because he was tired from trying to catch this guy.
They got tagged.
Yeah, and got tagged. And like he barely, but it's like, it's so cool to see. And we're talking about guys that don't even fight for a living. We're talking Joe Blows off the block.
Yep.
And like, there's that much difference between those two guys.
Yeah, man. Everybody's got a style.
Imagine the difference between even him that was like exhausting this guy, not getting touched, to a professional fighter, and then having to maintain that standard for years after years. Impossible.
I've always said that, and then we'll move on from here, but I've always said that fighters are the most conditioned athletes of any pro sport. You know,
most well-rounded.
Yeah,
by far.
Yeah,
most well-rounded.
Because the thing is, you can't just rely on strength. Because, for example, there was a couple of WWE guys that came into UFC, and first of all, I love Dana White for his kind of gatekeeping and wanting to protect the
sport as a whole.
The sport, right?
Yeah.
And he's a gatekeeper, and I love that about him. But you had Brock Lesnar, you had CM Punk, and I can't remember who the third guy is. Bobby Lashley. Those 3 guys that I know of came in. Now, Bobby Lashley in the WWE was a big dude, and he was too big to compete. He struggled because, sure, you get this hugely, bodybuilding body,
just like a bodybuilder.
But
it's
dude,
for show,
you can't wrestle, you can't do anything, So anyway, So the reason you came in today. Well, first, let's. I got a couple of questions I want to ask you, but first, just a shout out. I'm really enjoying this. We are having a whiskey on the show. We cracked a bottle of Evan. What is it? Evan Williams.
Yep.
1783.
Got a gold small batch.
Small batch. I've got to be honest. Smooth. This is one of the smoothest whiskeys I've had in a long time.
Yeah. No, it's really good. It's
my ice
delicious.
Is gone.
Actually, is the issue.
Yeah, I can see this being a problem.
Yeah, no, it's almost. I mean, it's 90 proof, but it's almost. It doesn't taste like it. For being a sipper, it should be 100 with the way this is. So
I know.
It's delicious.
And the thing is too, is there's like no burn to it at all. Now my ice melted, so that could be part of it.
So when I drink whiskey, anyways, I always normally put a splash of water in it. Cause
you want to open the nose up a little bit.
Yeah, I do. So
we can get official here.
Yeah. I don't want to confuse people out there that because even what I mean.
Yeah.
So we have different listeners out there, but no, if you were to try a whiskey, if anyone ever makes you try a whiskey, this is what I tell them: get a shot of whiskey in a glass, put ice in there, and then put a splash. Pretty much. I don't want to say the same parts water as whiskey, but literally you're going to water down your whiskey, and it's not offensive whatsoever. Nope. It actually brings out the notes of the whiskey, and it makes it palatable, especially for people that don't have the palate for it.
Exactly.
And that's how you're supposed to get into whiskey.
Yep, you're 100% right, man.
So for anyone out there listening that how do guys
Yep.
There are whiskeys that you do shots of, and then there are sipping whiskeys.
That's right.
And there's a reason there's a difference. There's a reason why they make whiskeys that are 100 proof. It's because you're supposed to put a little bit of water in there, so it's not 100 proof.
Yeah, this is beautiful.
No, actually. It is. It's
and you might want to be careful because I might tag you into making On the Rocks come back.
Oh boy!
As
I stare at your
it's
your
kind of weird.
Setup over there.
Just on a crazy side note. Yeah. So when I restarted Vertigo, I never really. I mean, On the Rocks had been kind of. I don't want to say dead, but hadn't been doing anything with it. Yeah. So, for years. I mean, before COVID, I mean, it was gone. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then out of the blue, someone messaged me. Oh, I got an email. Out of the blue, I got an email to the vertigopod@gmail.com. Yep. There's a plug. Vertigopod. Vertigopod@gmail.com. And I do check it. But someone emailed me and said, "Are you the same dude that did On the Rocks?" And I answered back. I'm like, "Yeah." And I said, "Yeah, absolutely." And they said, "I love that show. Would you bring it back?"
That means so much to you, though.
Yeah, it did. I was just sitting there like, what?
That's got to mean so much to you.
It was crazy.
It's like a legacy thing almost.
Well, it was weird because I didn't even get to 10 episodes, I don't think. And for podcasting, they say 10 episodes is the sweet spot. Like if you can hang in there and if you can hang in. So of 100% of podcasters, it's something like crazy, like 15% only make it to 10 episodes. And then from there, like only 2% like go on even from there.
Multiple seasons and shit on top of that.
Because here's the thing, man, you don't get rich doing this. Like I know everybody sees Joe Rogan and all that shit, but I'm not him. You know what I mean? So I do this
for a reason, man.
Yeah.
You're not making money off of this. That's why I do my woodworking for. People like see my prices and they think it's high or something. I'm still not making money with it.
Right.
Whatever you see it for.
Which I loved. That was another hobby I got into was woodworking.
My grandfather taught me it. So I find it very, and he's still alive. And I'm so appreciative for it. He's 90. He's pushing it. And I miss the days of being 9, 10-year-old. He specialized in making models.
Oh wow!
So he lives in Shenango. So the Erie Canal is huge, obviously in New York. So,
yeah, because I work up in Fayetteville.
Yeah. So the museum's right there, and he and my grandmother super involved in that. Like,
that's so cool.
The whole time growing. So anytime if you ever see any models in there, there's a 90% chance he made those. And I remember being there like making those models, and I learned so much. And I think woodworking is like. I don't know. I don't even know if it's still in the school if you can do that.
Yeah.
Anymore. But I think
that's right.
It helps you grow so much because it teaches you safety, but it's also an art at the same time. Agreed. So it's like it's on such like a widespread thing. So sorry to go on that tangent.
No.
Yeah.
Hey man,
anytime I talk about that, I love bringing up my grandfather.
No man, I love.
Gil is such a he's not even my like what's it called, blood grandfather or whatever. Like,
okay.
He married my grandmother. He's not on that lineage. He's from Quebec. He speaks straight French.
No kidding.
Yeah. So like I took French in high school to try and understand some things. He's got a heavy accent.
Yeah.
But no, the guy is a man of wealth, and he's amazing. So
that's odd. No man, I got goosebumps. Yeah, I love those kind of stories, man. I do. I just think it's incredible. And I've also learned at this age that I'm at now that family is who you choose. It's not necessarily DNA. It's who you choose them to be, you know?
Yeah.
And we can get into that.
It's a whole nother episode there.
But, all right, I'm going to ask you a couple of quick questions, and then we're going to get into the topic.
Okay.
So, and just out of curiosity, so what's in your playlist? What have you been listening to lately? I want to learn a little bit about Andy here.
Oh, shoot.
What do you got? What do you got queued up?
Let's see. Mac Miller's hidden album dropped the other day, or his Rebirth album, I guess it was.
Really?
Yeah.
I missed that. And I like Mac Miller.
Yeah, I did too. It was okay, if you want my honest opinion. It wasn't. Yep. It doesn't feel authentic. Which makes sense. Obviously, he's not alive.
So was it him, or was it one of these things where they used AI?
No. To my understanding, it's all his unreleased music that they put together to kind of like make an album, and you can tell.
I got
you. And it's unfortunate, you know what I mean? Like, but like it was a vibe still. Yep. But you have to be in the mood for it. So maybe I wasn't in the mood for it. You know,
yeah,
that might be part of the issue.
That's the hard thing. I like hip hop.
Yeah.
But if I'm not in the mood for it, I just can't.
Yeah. So I do jump around a lot, but I don't drive as much as I used to. So I used to drive to Auburn to go to work every day. So back then I would listen to podcasts and music. Like I would go through I could go through an album.
Yeah.
In one day, driving there and back.
Well, that's me.
Because
Fayetteville.
it's an hour and 15-minute drive.
Yeah, dude.
So like I could literally go through an album.
Yeah,
in a
man,
day, no
absolutely.
problem. So like I don't have that much free time anymore, so I am missing out on that kind of culture of it. But so I listened to that the other day. Shoot, what else? Lil Wayne's dropping an album this summer. I'm super excited. Yeah, Carter 17, whatever it is now. I'm excited about that. So, but no, that's kind of all. I mean, I listen to country a lot. I'm a big Zach Bryan. So I was a Zach Bryan fan before Zach Bryan is whoever he is now. Whatever people want to make him out to be, I don't give a fuck. He makes good music.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm very surface level. I don't care if you did something. If you're making good music, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah. No.
Honestly, like,
why did he? Is he in some scandal or something?
Nah, some woman issue, abusive bullshit.
Oh, no
I don't
shit.
know. I think it takes both sides, but that's none of my. Like I said, to me, you need to appreciate artists for what they are, because like that's all they should be to you, because you don't know them as a person.
Yeah. No, I can
like
get
there's
that.
a level, obviously. Like if that guy was a serial rapist to kids, I wouldn't listen to him and support him. But like that's not the issue we're talking about here. You know what I mean? So like, and me listening to his song is not going to give him $1 million. So I don't. To me, my one not listen isn't going to make a difference. So
right? Yeah, you would need like literally everybody to stop.
Yeah, it's making it.
Yeah,
and that's
no,
just
I get you.
That's not how society works. So.
No,
but no. So I listen to him, and honestly, I just. Recently, I've just been listening to podcasts anytime I get a chance to.
Yeah, dude, that's like, been my jam too.
It hasn't even been a lot of music recently. I know when I was plowing over winter, though, I would turn on like 93Q and stuff, and like the Pink Pony song would come on, and there's nothing like that hitting at 2 a.m. to really.
I don't even know that,
dude.
I can't even tell you the last
pop
time.
music out there right now, dude. Some of that is so catchy and makes you feel. It's so dumb too.
Dude,
there's no depth to the music. It's just literally just to make it as catchy as possible. But it is catchy.
Man, that's what pop is. I haven't listened to the radio, dude. I can't even tell you.
I didn't either. But that plow truck don't have fucking any kind of auxiliary.
Right. So that's all you got. That's all you got.
That, you're listening to your phone on speaker on high.
Yeah, like trying to hear 1980 as you're dropping the blade and play. Yeah, man, that ain't working.
So,
well, man, I haven't listened to radio, and so isn't that crazy to think about? And
the other day I had to, because even in my my work truck, my Silverado out there, the auxiliary jack like stopped working.
Right.
I replaced the radio with a whole new one now. But like for a while, I was like, why don't I listen to radio anymore? Because I used to back even 10 years ago. I would listen to it on my way to like work to make sure there wasn't like traffic or anything.
Yeah.
Back then,
there's still things that are good about radio.
Back then, that wasn't like there wasn't no ways to tell you there was an accident.
Yeah, you're right.
Like, you know what I mean?
Now you get an alert on your phone.
Yeah. So like back then, I would listen to it, but now like, dude, I remember the other day turning that on, and I went through every single local channel. I think there's like 7 that you could possibly get around here. Every single one was on commercial at the same time.
Yeah, dude, I swear they do that on purpose.
I'm like, no wonder why no one listens to this shit. Where's the fucking CD, man? Because I'm about to throw this bitch in.
Yeah, right. CDs too, man. Holy shit. So, what would you say, just strictly out of curiosity, not including Vertigo, of course. Okay. What's your favorite podcast do you think that you listen to?
So, I think, again, with the ADHD, I jump around
me too.
So much is the issue. Like I was saying before we went on air, there's this one podcast that my friend turned me on, and it's literally just them reading Google reviews and them making fun of the fact
love that shit.
They're like, well, you went to a McDonald's and you got a cheeseburger. Shouldn't that be enough?
Right?
Isn't that your expectation? Like,
right.
But some people like they make it, and one was they were reviewing a cemetery just outside of like Chicago, and they're like, well, you had to wait 2 hours to get your son buried because the other thing to bring him down was like not right. But like some of it is hilarious, so I listen to that. You know, I listen to some JRE and sports like football. When football's out, I listen to some sport ones. So
I think for me, I like JRE, Joe Rogan Experience. For anyone who's not sure what that is, I like Joe, but I have found that there are so many other he's the number one podcaster in the world, I guess. So I mean, but anyway, I was going to show you this real quick. I've got the History Hyenas with Giannis Pappas and Chris DiStefano. Dude, if you like comedy, these fuckers are hilarious.
Yeah, I've heard them. I've heard of them before.
They're great.
Oh, and another one I listened to for a while, which I can't believe. So the DC Sniper.
Ooh.
You remember that?
I do remember that.
I don't. That was never taught to me in school.
Really?
So there was a whole podcast on the whole series because like that guy was still going like not the son that was going through that. Yeah, he was still going through the court systems like 3 years ago. So like that was an active topic that they were still talking about.
Wow.
So like there's like history ones that I'll hop into,
so,
like even World War II
real
and shit
quick,
like that. So
all right, so the DC Sniper, I'm trying to think how long ago that was. That was a minute, man. I still lived in Oswego.
Early 2000s.
Yeah. That's
early
crazy.
2000s.
I remember the fear that
Which,
that caused.
to me, like, I guess it makes sense because, like, I was in elementary school in the early 2000s.
That would make sense.
And it was too new in high school for them to teach it to me in history,
Yeah.
I guess. But I would love to know if they taught that nowadays because, like, that's like whenever I envision, like, terrorists, like the ultimate terrorist, that is the ultimate terrorist. No rhyme or reason.
Yeah.
Just.
That's terror.
That's how you invoke terror and panic.
Yeah.
No rhyme or reason whatsoever.
Nope.
You're just at a gas station and then pop.
Yep.
Get shot.
Yep.
No rhyme
I remember.
or reason.
That was a crazy. We'll have to look that up. That was a crazy time.
Yeah. But that was another podcast that I listened to. And that was like a 2 or 3 season, 14 episode, 2 hours apiece. Like that was
dude. Some of those they get into it, man.
Yeah.
Well, and what brings you in today as we're now fighting?
40 minutes in. No.
Who cares? Who cares?
Yeah. So, no, I as a father and as you were a father, and I think dealing with the family court system, obviously, unfortunately being separated from the mother of my kids, and obviously for the best, but that puts you into a place where the government gets to make decisions that might not even be in the interest of either party, let alone the kids. And I think that's something that needs to be talked about more.
I definitely do too. And I was really happy when you had started talking to this about me because, like you already mentioned, I too have an experience going through the family court system. And it, in my opinion, and I'm actually kind of glad that we're talking about this because generational, so my son now is in his 20s. And so at the time that I was going through the family court system, you're talking about, God, he was 9 years old. So 16 years ago. So, and then fast forward to now, this is recent for you. And I think one of the things that I found, and I'm going to let you tell your story, but I think one of the things that I found about this was how disheartening that in 15, 16 years time, nothing's really changed.
Yeah. The fact that when I mentioned this, even like last time we were on the podcast together, and Eric, I think even at Fulton we touched on it like briefly, but like you were like, oh, I understand, and everyone says that, but like the fact that I now know that nothing's changed in 15 years.
No.
And
not from the sounds of it, at least.
No, 90% of it, like we were saying, certain states have gotten a lot better, but like to my understanding, like definitely New York, Oswego County definitely has not, because it was still the same magistrate that was presiding my case as yours, which is insane.
Yeah, you're right.
How is that possible in 15 years? This hasn't. That is part of the issue of our government. How do you not have turnaround? If you keep the same people in positions there, then we can never grow as a society as a whole.
No, and there's no difference in thought that comes in. You get somebody who probably is actually grumpier than maybe when I saw him 15 years ago, That's the thing. And it is. I hate to say it, but it's the truth. And this might open up a whole lot of comments, but I think it's true. Listen, I know that there's probably reasons for it, and you can cite those reasons, and I will not disagree with you. But overall, in my opinion, the family court system is stacked against men.
No, it 1,000% is. And as somebody that had an absent dad growing up for a majority of my life and understood that my mom was not getting support from him when she should have, I find it I'm pissed at those dads that are a piece of shit.
Absolutely.
That are not around for their kids.
Fuck yeah, man.
That are not, if you're not going to be around, at least throw them money.
Right.
I agree with that.
Absolutely.
1,000%. But the issue is child support is set up for only that situation and no others.
Right.
At least in New York State. And like you were saying, like Massachusetts does seem to have better laws, and
I only want to say that because, and I don't want to interrupt you, but I only want to say that because at the time that I was going through the family court,
you were made aware
I was pissed.
Yeah.
I was pissed. And so I started doing my own research, which I feel like you also do.
Yeah.
So you and I were the same, just at different times on a timeline.
Yeah.
And so what I had found in my research is there's absolute, so New York State, and we talked about this briefly before we went live. In New York State, there's a formula. Like you plug the mathematical equation in, and out comes the number that you're going to pay.
Yeah, I'll give you an example of that. So like normal, so it's like based off of what each party makes. So if I make, super simple, if I make $60,000 a year and she makes 40, that's a 60-40 split technically, right down the middle, right? So that $20,000 difference, I have to pay her that $20,000 difference so that it's an equal household. That is the formula right there. That is the only thing they use. And it doesn't matter if I don't see my kids at all or if it's 50-50
right.
custody.
And there's where the struggle comes in.
And that's where the issue
Yep,
is.
because here's the thing, and this is what kind of pisses me off. First of all, I want to go on record as saying that I don't have a problem with child support. I think that it is more than fair.
I think it's necessary.
Yeah,
correct.
Absolutely. Raising kids is not cheap. And kids get into, whether it's sports, the arts, whatever, they have their thing, right?
Yep.
And I absolutely believe that as a parent, I have a responsibility to help support that.
Correct.
So I have no problem with that. Where I do have a problem is what you and I were talking about earlier. Where I do have a problem is when you have visitation, right?
Yep.
And so now your child is coming to you on the weekends. And I'm just going to talk real from my experience, at least, right?
That set you off? Because obviously,
so here's the thing. So first of all, actually, okay, I'm gonna make a comment, and then I want you to comment back because I don't want it, because this is bringing up some shit for me. I didn't realize was in the closet, man. Yeah.
Some frustration.
There's some fucking But anyway, no, seriously. One of the things that I thought about was, so when my son would come and visit me on the weekends, it sucked because I often didn't have the money. Now, here's the thing. So prior to going to family court, I had one job where I was making decent money.
Yep.
Okay. Some things happened within that job that I had to leave. It just was a toxic work environment. It was time for me to leave. And it had nothing. This is the crazy thing. So you had my separation going on over here, and then you had my work life thing going on over here, and it was clearly time to leave. Those things had nothing to do with one another, but were happening almost similar.
They tend to.
Yeah, at the same time, right? Because right, things happen in threes, they say, right? So that was that. And so I'm separating from my ex-wife, and I'm also going through a career change, which partly was my fault because I wanted to get into substance abuse counseling. Yeah. And so I needed to do that. Well, I found a position that I could do that, but I took like an $8 an hour loss in pay.
Yeah, but you also probably weren't killing yourself every day anymore, right?
Right. Yeah. So long story short, you go to family court, right? And you got to bring pay stubs. And so now they're like, I feel like there's this judgment that comes out. Well, why did you leave this job making $20 an hour to go to this job to make $15?
Yep.
It was like, right, well, I did this because I want a career, not a job.
Yeah.
But I felt like the judge don't give a shit.
You don't have a choice.
Right. And so then what's the judge say?
You're viewed as a dollar bill.
Yeah. And so now I feel like a shitty, so it's bad enough that I'm going through a separation, and I kind of feel shitty about that because, my family's separating.
Yeah. Is it my fault anyways? Now you're being viewed as, well,
right.
The only thing you're worth now is the money that's printed out of your pocket.
Exactly.
Yep.
And so then the judge was like, well, you have the means to make $20 an hour, so it's not my fault that you're making $15. Yeah. And it's like, tell me where and I remember him saying this to me. Yeah. Well, you, Mr. McDowell, have the opportunity to make $20 an hour, and you left that position for a $15 an hour. So he's looking at it like I'm just trying to stiff out, and it's like, why don't I get to make a choice to better my life?
If you're trying to stiff out, then like, wouldn't you just not work? Like, to me, like, I feel like common sense would go so far in that line of business, but for some reason, it doesn't seem to make any difference.
So tell me. So anyway, right away, I guess my point is judgment. So tell your story, but I'm just saying. So I'm just setting it up in this fact that right away, I feel like there's judgment that happens.
Yeah, there's judgment before you even enter the courtroom.
Exactly.
Obviously, like, and like, I know it's talked about, but I don't think people really understand because I think the issue is like the bad 10% of guys, the shitty 10% of guys that evade paying child support and aren't around to see their sons or don't contribute seem to get heard. And like, it's just like, far right or far left. It's only the 10% that's talked about on the news, right? It's just like that with anything, any
no,
topic.
you're right. I hear you.
And that's where, and I think that's where it is. Like, and I think that's why a lot of dads don't like to talk about it because they feel like they're being judged again, which is the last thing we want to fucking do right now. We don't want to be judged. But like, when I tell people like my story of like, yeah, no, I have 50-50 custody. Oh, that's great. Like, yeah, no, it is great. I love my kids and I love being there as much as possible, but I can't financially afford to be here for my kids anymore.
Yes.
And they're like, well, what do you mean? Well, I've been coaching baseball for the last 4 years for my kids. I can't do that anymore because I have to work extra hours because I can't afford to do that and still pay child support.
Yep.
So I'll lay it out like. I'm wide open. The last job before I started working for myself, I was making $29 something an hour, right? I found out she was making $26 something an hour, a $3 an hour difference, right? So we're talking $120 a week, which is roughly what it comes down to is the difference. That's the difference in our paychecks before anything happens is $120 a week. But I'm paying $175 in child support.
A week?
A week.
Yep.
So already I'm paying her more money than the difference in our paychecks. But that is the legal, like you were saying earlier, like it is an equation, and that is the legal equation regardless of custody or anything else. That is the legal equation. It's 50. I have 50-50 custody, but that is the legal equation.
So let me ask you this, then, right? So you're paying that a week.
Yep.
So what does that do to you then when your kiddos come to visit you and want to go out for pizza or want to go to the zoo or what does that do to you?
Talk about being kicked while you're down, right?
Right.
There's nothing worse than that, right? So I remember when this first happened, like years ago, when I was ordered to pay child support, and they were threatening me with like even like $225 a week or something like that. I have 2 kids, so like I get it's more, it's based, like you said, it's an equation.
It's an equation. That's all they care
about.
But
like that equation only works for a dad that isn't around whatsoever and is paying to support the mom full time. But that's not how the family court sees it in New York State. Not whatsoever. It is an equation, and they stick to it as long as you're the non-custodial parent, which in New York, the non-custodial parent for 50-50 custody is the parent that makes more money.
Oh, wow.
So I'm automatically the non-custodial parent. I've been in the school district and lived in the school district for 6 years. She has not. But I'm the non-custodial parent because I make more money than her.
Right.
So she automatically has more rights because she makes less money.
Right.
Is automatically where we started off with.
Right.
Which is, I'm like, how does this make sense? And when I explain this to people, they're like, oh, that can't be legal. That can't make sense. And when I'm telling them, like, no, this is what guys go through every day. I'm on Facebook groups.
Yep.
Because like when I started going through this, like you said, doing research, hopping on Facebook groups, hopping on Reddit pages, like I read the fucking family court law book from front to back.
Oh, I don't blame you.
Like I tried to figure out, and it's because they don't have legal standing. No one took this to Supreme Court of New York State before, because guess what? Us dads, we can't afford to do that because of the situation we're in, so we can't fight this the right way anyways.
I want to push pause right there because I think that there's multiple problems. First problem, I think most people are respectful of the court, and most people are respectful of the judges, and they're not there to cause a problem.
Yep.
Right? Who the hell is going to, in their right mind, sit there and try to argue or push back with a judge? We are just taught that you do not do that.
Yeah.
Right? So there's that. You have a military background, so you respect your superiors, and a judge would fall under superiors, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
So I think that there's an automatic power struggle there.
Yeah, we're not allowed to question.
Right, exactly. However, the fucked up part of all of this is we also need to be asking questions, because like you said, you have 50-50 custody of your child. Or children, right? And you have 50-50. That means 50% of the time, half the time, they're with you, right?
Yep.
And then half that, and when they are with you, I bet you they still want to hit McDonald's. They probably still want to go grab clothes. They probably still want a toy. They probably, right? There's still things that
I still have to do Christmas, just like she does.
Exactly, right?
I still have birthdays, just
and
like
how
she does.
shitty would it feel if you were to say to your kids, hey, I can't do Christmas this year because I'm, right? Like, you just can't do that. But yet you're doing it.
One year I was literally there, and it was like the military fucked up my paychecks. Yeah. And thank God I had, like, people in the military. They literally helped me out one year.
Yeah, man.
But, like, I've been down so bad.
Well, sure.
Because I remember, like, the worst case scenario that you could ever think of. Like, child support took, like, I didn't get paid for a month straight because they fucked up my promotion in the military or something. And they paid out my vacation. And then they took it all back the next paycheck. And I got paid bi-weekly, so I didn't get paid for a month straight. And then I was behind 2 weeks in child support then.
Yeah.
So then they took double the amount. Plus the military was taking money back still. And I literally had like $100 paycheck. And it was December, dude.
Right. Yeah, and what do you do about that, right?
Well,
and nobody wants to hear it.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
and as
the
a
bullshit.
guy, it's like we're not allowed to talk about that because we're struggling too. On top of it,
so I'm going to push pause again, and I apologize, but there's so many layers here, and I think that it's important to hit kind of on all of them. One, you've got the financial struggle, right? That the emotional struggle, and that's what I want to talk about more, because as guys, we're not supposed to really let loose on the emotional part. But there's a huge
emotion. Especially in front of your kids.
Right.
Especially in front of your kids.
Yes.
Especially when you're going through a breakup or a divorce or whatever it is to put you in this situation. And it might be your fault, it might not.
Yeah.
But regardless, here you are in an emotional place anyways.
Right.
And now you're getting hit on all sides from everything at the same time.
And that's how it feels too, man. It feels like you're literally, so we were talking about combat sports earlier, so I'm going to kind of make an analogy, but it feels like you're in the, it's like being in the ring with 4 people instead of 1.
Yeah.
Because you just can't, you can't get away from it. You're getting hit from this side, you're getting hit from this side. Yeah.
Defeating,
you know what I mean?
Exhausting, defeating. And it's like, it makes your job feel worthless. It makes your life feel worthless. And then you're like, at the end, and I don't want to say that because, like, but it is because it's exhausting. It's like you go to work all week and you work a job that you might not even like or love in the first place, and then you come home and you have nothing to show for it, and your kids show up and they're like, "What do we?" Like you said, "What are we doing this weekend?" And it's like nothing. We're staying home because that's all I have.
Yep.
So, like, meanwhile, there was a time she was going out and doing whatever, regardless. But, like, it goes back to, like I was saying, that equation. Like, when I tell people, like, so we started off to where I'm paying her $175 a week, but there's only $120 for a 40-hour week anyways. Granted, I can work overtime and make more money, but then I'm taking time away from my kids most of the time, right?
Well, and let's talk about that. Yeah. And I don't mean to keep interjecting, but I apologize. This is something that I'm so just passionate about because it hits on all of the things, man. Yeah. And so as a father, right, we're already criticized for not being emotionally available for our children.
Correct.
Right? But then we're taken through a family court system that
punishes us for being emotional or showing some side. Like, if you were to show that you were frustrated in court, guess what? You're getting the book thrown at you now because you're not allowed to show that side of you at all.
And I made the mistake of getting upset in family. I guess I shouldn't put it so nicely. Yeah. I got pissed the fuck off in family court.
I did,
and I let my voice be heard. And
no,
you don't do that. You don't do that.
Yeah, because now it's a power struggle against
because
which is the
you
most
don't fuck with the magistrate, man.
Which is the most childish thing that you could ever think of, right?
Yeah,
so
because especially now, let's rewind this back. And again, I'm not trying to, but let's say you and I have already talked about that. So we've had abusive people in our life, abusive family members in our life as kids, right? And then we go in front of a judge who feels like a giant fucking bully.
Yep, that's what he is, though.
Yeah, yeah. And then, it's just like...
he's a stepdad you don't like. That's all it is. And that's how I relate to him anyways.
I can't say it better, man.
Yeah, that's just how it is. And it's just like... So now there I am. I'm sitting there, and I'm doing the math in my head right now. I'm like... When I first heard those numbers years ago, I'm doing the math in my head. I'm like I'm sitting there. I hold my hand up to the mic and I talk to my lawyer. I was like, how that? She's making more money than me every week. How is that? He goes, no, she's not. She's like, on paper. It's like, no, not on paper. It's because I have to pay that $175 a week, but I get taxed on my whole check. She doesn't get taxed on the $175 a week either. So not only is it a difference of $120 to I'm paying her $175, but it's also a tax difference on top of that. Oh, and get this too, I was ordered to pay for the family health insurance for both my kids, which I am fine with, but they don't take that into account either. So now I'm paying another $100 a week.
So
on top of it, which she's not. Dude. So now we're talking about a $275 a week obligation.
Yeah, because we're not talking about health insurance in 1980 when a company fucking paid for it and it was free and clear.
No. I mean, you'd be lucky if you can find a family health plan for under $150.
So here's the difference between you and I age-wise. When I first started working full-time and got health insurance, I paid like cents out of my paycheck for it. Literally, like... Dude, I paid nothing virtually. Okay, now I come from an era where I understood. So I started working full time and didn't get charged anything for health insurance, but then also obviously worked long enough in my career full time where I saw all the healthcare changes, and now the employee instead of the employer is responsible for a majority of it. And I'm not saying that the employer doesn't still pay out the nose. I don't know.
They do. Yeah. If you look at the numbers, they'll put it in there. They do. Health insurance as a whole.
Yeah, it's a racket, dude. And so so then that's another, because I know, for example, most full-time jobs that I've had in the last, let's say, 10 years, argument's sake, dude, is even as good. I consider myself having a very good paying job right now. Mm-hmm. I can't afford the health insurance through there. You know what I mean? Like it takes a majority of my fucking check.
Yeah. So and how
family.
Yeah, and how I break down my paychecks to people is like at $29 an hour when I was at Fulton Companies there, which also needs to be talked about more. Put your fucking wages out there, because otherwise companies like that will fuck you. Because I came into that position making more than other people in the same position, which is tells you how toxic that fucking place is. That's a whole nother fucking topic. I know you went through it, so that's why I fucking plugged it. Anyways.
Yeah.
So, that needs to be talked about. But so I came into that position making that much money. That's why you don't
talk about wages.
Yeah. That's why you talk about wages. A little plug right there. Anyways, so I came into that position making decent money. This was 3-4 years ago. Yeah. Now, I feel like with inflation, it cuts $5 off an hour every year. I feel like it feels like.
I agree.
The $30 an hour now doesn't feel like $30 an hour 5 years ago. That's for damn sure.
Understood.
So, but I was like, okay, so on a 40-hour a week check, like you're thinking $1,200 or something like that. By the time I pay health insurance, retirement, and child support and everything, my paychecks were under $600 a week.
Yeah. And you got to live off that. And
which is crazy, because when I worked at a pizzeria when I was 18, making $12 an hour, my paychecks were $400-something a week.
Right.
How am I bringing home the same amount of money now and expected to live off of it?
And that's what I feel like people don't understand. It's incredible. And that's what I was saying. And then you have your child
that is still expecting the same. Which is not
it's not their fault.
Obviously,
it's not their fault. They don't know.
And we know that too. Yeah. Like when the kid comes home and asks for something, we have to figure out a way to say this while shielding them. You know what I mean? And as any parent that struggled, or even a kid that grew up in a household that struggled with bills, can relate to this. Our job is to shelter our kids, or be sheltered from the financial standpoint of life. And it is so important, I think, because I found out real young that money runs the world, and it made me a terrible fucking kid for a little bit.
Yeah.
Because all I cared about was working and nothing else when I was like 16 or 17.
Sure.
And that is, and that's one of my biggest regrets.
Yeah, I
till
hear you.
this day.
I hear you.
I never had a childhood. Is how I started working when I was 12.
Dude, my poor wife, man, has put up more in the 15 years that we have done together, because I feel like I didn't start living my childhood until her and I got together. And then, yeah, so we can talk about that too. Yeah. But I guess what I'm saying is I feel you, man. Yeah. I'm with you.
Yeah. So here I've read a few articles, and I just want to pull one up.
While you're looking for that, one of the laws that I saw in Massachusetts was called like the Prince and the Pauper law, and it was basically saying like, okay, we need to look at both incomes of the house and who's got sole custody, or not sole custody, but who's
the primary
custody.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then who's got the shared, and then we need to look at, okay, so in your case, if the child is going with you 50% of the time, is their lifestyle going to change because of the amount of money that you're paying in child support? And so they look, so it's not just an equation is what I'm saying. Yeah. They also look at...
They take into equate the actual custody.
Exactly.
Which is what needed. And there's other states out there, because I'm on Facebook groups where there's support groups for guys like us that are going through.
Yeah.
But it's also the most depressing group if you ever want.
Yeah.
There's 10 or 15% of guys that are just so ill-informed that don't understand. Well, and then the other 25% are like, well, you live in that state, there's nothing you can do.
And then you put all this pressure that's already on guys financially, and then we're not supposed to talk about our shit emotionally. Yeah. And then you wonder why. We talked about this on how it's like. And
all
then
these child support rules were put in 1975 was like the federal child support. Like, hey, we need to do something about all these single mothers.
Fair enough.
But this was a time where like it was still okay for guys to be the only ones working in the house.
Yeah, there wasn't 2-income households then.
Nowadays, you can't live off that unless even if you're clearing $150 a year by yourself. It's hard to live off.
Dude, you know what's crazy? Because I'm old enough to know that if you were making $100,000 or $150,000, you were living pretty high on the hog.
I remember when I graduated high school, if you could make $100,000, which is like what a lineman was gonna be making with overtime and shit, you made it. Nowadays, $100,000 feels like a 50.
Dude, grand. I was just gonna tell you that if you're making $150,000 to $100,000 to $150,000, you're considered in poverty.
I believe it. Yeah, with a family.
Right. Yeah, that's the key. It's how many, but a 4-person family at $100,000 a year is considered poverty.
Yeah. So this article I found is from the Columbia University School of Social Work. So unfortunately, my Chinese isn't very good, but it's from Hanjun and really the article is the role of child support debt on the development of mental health problems among non-residential fathers. So really they're focusing on, and this was back in like 2019. This was even years, like 5 years ago we're talking already. So like, but they're focusing on the statistics of like, hey, what if we look at this as more of like, what is this doing to like not only the children mentally, but the fathers that are going through this mentally?
Right.
Because like this has to have some effect more than what we think it does. Because obviously this is an issue.
Right.
And there's multiple data sets in here, but statistically, what they're saying is they say it's not statistical. Like it's not great enough statistically, but there's over a 15% difference between the fact that men get paid child support between women. Across the board, 24/7, regardless. Yep. And then there's over a 30% difference that a man that has sole custody of his kids will ever see a child support payment compared to a woman.
Right.
There's over a 30% difference between those two numbers. So you're going to sit here and tell me that the system's not biased? I'm not saying you, but I'm saying anyone that would have that argument. If you just look at the data where they say it's not statistically meaning because it's not greater than 50% difference or something crazy out of this. But like That's a big enough difference to be like, well, you can't say that that's not true. Because I know as a father with 50-50 custody, if I made less money than my ex-wife or whoever, I would not go for child support, because to me, that's not the right thing to do. She has to figure out how to survive on her own. I have to. I'm going to pull my britches up and figure out how to maintain my lifestyle. Is how I view it.
Right.
However, that does not seem to be what is viewed there.
This lights off a whole bunch of stuff for me, and it's hard because, man, I don't even know how to get into it and sound politically correct, I guess. You know, one of the things that I think frustrated me, and kind of one of the things that started me down the road of Vertigo, and I'm kind of glad that this conversation came up, is because I wanted to talk a lot about men and men's mental health. Mm-hmm. And I feel like there is so much that is presented in the media to say that things have gotten better.
So much better. Yeah.
Right? But in the reality of things, I want to know where the fuck that exists, because I haven't experienced.
It's just gotten talked about, which does
it's gotten talked about in some ways.
And so they think that transparency means that it's better, even though there's not a fix to it.
I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I might upset some people, and I want first to say, honestly, I deeply apologize for that, because my goal here is not to upset. Yeah. So we have gotten better when we talk about GLBTQ issues.
Yep.
I hope I hit all that right, because I really, honest to God, mean no disrespect in my ignorance, okay?
No.
So we've gotten better when we talk about maybe relationships and sexuality and things like that, but we haven't gotten better in the matters that matter. This is one of those matters that matter. Do you follow me what I'm saying?
No.
Like if you want to talk about men talking about emotions, and if you want to talk about men talking about mental health, and if you want,
I'm saying what affects more masses.
Exactly.
And I'm not saying that anyone who is gay, lesbian, or transgender or any is any less than a man.
Right. And that's what I'm saying.
And that's what you're saying too.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that we're any less, but there's more of us that are dealing with these struggles.
Right. That's what I'm talking about.
There's how many thousands of men commit suicide every day, which I understand the numbers are super high for transgender people too.
Sure.
However, we're talking millions of us.
Yeah, man.
The number one killer of guys under 45 is suicide.
Yeah. Why? Right? Why? Why is that? Because it's not all just GLBTQ issues, and that's what I'm saying. Yep. I'm not saying that those things should not be talked about, because they absolutely should be.
Yeah.
But what I'm talking about is
the bigger lion in the room.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Because percent-wise, and I'm just talking mathematical,
if you
just
care
like the
about
courts
the lives on Earth.
Yes.
Then why aren't we discussing this more?
Right.
Yes.
Thank you, man. Because that's the thing. It's a small percentage of people. Now, listen, I'm not saying that struggle is not important. Yeah. But the truth of the matter is that more men are faced with struggles of child support, family court. Yeah. You know, the what is the word that I'm looking for, man? Help me pull it out of there. Stereotypes and whatnot. The stereotypes that men are dealing with that side of things are, in my perception, more. Yeah. Does that make sense? What I'm saying?
No. Yeah. Well, as you know, I'm sure, but like, there's less than a 50% chance that when you get married nowadays that you will stay with that person.
That's so sad, right?
That's insane, right? Statistically, like 30 years ago. That was frowned upon, which in a way I think is empowering to certain people.
Sure.
But obviously we're getting married for the wrong reasons then, if that's happening. Right?
Yeah.
But the issue is so you take that number, right, and then you compile this guy who now might have got married too young, i.e. me, that has kids really young, that suffered a lot, i.e. me, that has financial struggles.
I'm with you, brother.
Yeah, that has financial struggles because I decided to have kids at 18 when I couldn't afford them in this shit world that we're in.
Yep.
Right? So now I'm doing everything I can, and now I'm divorced. Now like you said, I'm in a ring, and I'm getting fought. And now, guess what? On top of that, I'm dealing with all the same mental struggles as everyone else is. Plus, I'm in the military. Plus,
Oh
so I already
so
have
you're
a
getting
high
it from all
suicide.
sides.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I have a higher suicide risk just because of that. I've seen all of my friends go through that shit. I know a bunch of guys that I've lost and women, unfortunately, that I've lost because of that. And then I realized statistically, I'm 2.5 to 3 times more likely going to kill myself because I'm a divorced man.
Yep.
2.5 to 3 times more likely
Mm-hmm.
because I'm a divorced man. You know how crazy that is?
No, I know.
Imagine if you're like, well, if you get in that car today, you're 3 times more likely to die than the other guy next to you in the car.
Well, and
you wouldn't get in the car.
And that's kind of my point, is that we're doing really good talking about, I feel like we're doing really good talking about gender issues when in terms of sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
We're not doing a good job in talking about the issues that exist outside of that. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Well, I think the issue is when we talk about men's rights when it comes to this thing, being sexist falls into that line. That thinking that men should have rights for certain things as far as, like, obviously I think a blanket statement, like, the guy should have the same amount of right to raise his kids as the woman. Correct. That's how we got the 50-50 custody. And I think New York's really good about ordering 50-50 custody unless you're like a drug addict or something like that. However, they don't see the new side of it where both people, like I said, this was ordered in 1975. They don't see the new side of
archaic.
It where both people have to work nowadays to survive.
Yeah.
So now they're going off those laws expecting guys to work.
Right.
To pay her when we can't afford to live ourselves on our own basic salary.
Well, that's where I guess I'm coming from, is I feel like, well, first of all, I want to go out and say that if this topic is hitting a nerve for you, first of all, there is help available. I just want to put that out there. So 988 is the national crisis line for suicide. So if you're somebody who's listening to this conversation and it's hitting a nerve for you, and maybe you're in that deep, dark place, man, listen, I've lost people that I love to suicide. And I am telling you, man, that is, I don't even know how to describe it. That's a heaviness that I will never get rid of. So please do yourself a favor. Reach out, 988. There is no shame in that. So I just want to put that out real quick. I don't want to interrupt the flow of the conversation.
That. And on top of that is what we say in the military is call a buddy.
Yeah, man.
If you can think of anyone that this might hit home with, call them.
Yeah, man.
Because I can't say, I've gotten calls like by guys that, like, yeah, we were friends in the military, but randomly, like on like the week of Christmas, he called me. I answered him. And whenever, as a guy, I think when someone calls me, I'm like, what do you need? Like, I'm always trying to fix a problem. I expect that call.
Yeah.
And he just wanted to call to talk. And like, it meant so much to me. Not that I was even in a low place at the time.
Yeah.
But like, I feel like if I could have done that to some of my friends, it would make a difference.
Oh my God. Dude,
call a buddy. That's what I said.
Do you mind if I tell a personal story real quick?
Shoot, I'm all set with what I said. I think we definitely fully in Gallows, like, at least helped open some eyes up to some of the injustice that's going on. Honestly, we could talk about this topic for hours. I wish we could get a family court lawyer on here to, like, well, yeah, there's nothing you can do, but, like, really, like, as somebody that's gone through this for 7 years, and I know you have your own years of experience through it, like, we're testaments to, like, this is what's happening. Like, this is it, man.
No, I know. It's tough. I've never shared this story before, first of all, and I'm a little bit anxious / nervous because I know my kids listen to this. But the first Christmas after my ex-wife and I separated, I wanted to make it special for my son and for my stepson, who I consider my son, but I'm just saying legally so that, you know what I mean, to not confuse the story. Yeah. So I had Maddox and I had Sean. And I wanted it to be special because there was so much shit that was already going on with the adults, right? I mean, we're dealing with the separation.
And you as a kid remembered Christmas should be special and nothing else should matter, so you're clinging to that. You're clinging to what you think Christmas should be. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, because
like me, I had like 1 or 2 Christmases, but like that was it.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So I'm clinging to like what I think. All I'm saying, not to interrupt.
No.
I relate, and you're right for feeling the way you did.
Thank you, man. This is tough. Jesus. Okay. So I remember the first Christmas. So my ex-wife and I are separated. We separated over the summer. And so it was like June or July when we separated. And here we come into, December. We're doing the family court battle, doing all that stuff. But I remember, I didn't have, I wasn't the primary custody. I had visitation. Mm-hmm. And thinking back now, I wish I had fought so much harder than I fought. But I just felt I had such a defeatist attitude back then. Yeah. And I'm disappointed in myself. I wish I could go back and talk to that guy and say, like, what the fuck, dude? But anyway, first Christmas comes around. I'm struggling. I'm, just changed jobs and making less money. But yet, ironically, paying child support on the money that I was making. That I am making.
The money that you're not making.
Right. Yeah. So, because I had the means to make that money, whatever the fuck that means.
Yeah, but that means that now you get to get a part-time job to pay for her, pretty much.
Which then you get bitched at because, now I'm not upholding my visitation because I've got to fucking work, right? Exactly. Yeah, it's just always getting, one way or another. So anyway, I remember that Christmas, like, I just wanted it to be special. I just
wanted this one win.
Yeah, man. Like, I wanted to forget every fucking thing that was going on. I wanted to be happy that I was in a relationship that I actually loved the person that I was with and that I was, feeling, because here's the thing. So I think I need to go back, actually. I need to tell you some things that you don't know. Mm-hmm. And not only you, Andy, but the listeners. My ex-wife is 10 years older than me. 9 if you want to be official. So I met her when I was 20 and she was 30. I was a kid. My relationship with her changed solely because I became an adult in that relationship. So by the time I hit 30, and now she's almost 40, or is 40.
She wasn't who she got
right.
with. Yeah.
My view had changed, and what I wanted for myself had changed. Okay? There was nothing necessarily, there was lots of things wrong within the relationship that maybe I could have been better at verbalizing. But the truth of the matter is I grew up. And when I grew up, I realized that what I wanted for myself was different than what I was actually living. So, long story short, we get separated. And now I meet Amanda, who is the love of my life. Whether that's easy to hear or not, that's the truth, right? And so here we are, we're in this relationship. Of course, my ex doesn't like it. I don't expect her to.
Yeah. Everything's fresh right now.
We're going through court. We're going through all this shit. And so here we are. It's time for Christmas. And I just wanted Sean to be able to experience Christmas how he had remembered it when him and my how am I trying to say this? Right, when my ex-wife, his mom, and I were together.
When you guys were originally a family.
Exactly. I just wanted him to be able to forget about the stress and the things that were going on.
You're trying to shield your kid. Yep.
Yeah, man. And so here's this immense amount of pressure because I'm paying support. And yet I'm also trying to because now I get to have Christmas with him. And I'm so fucking excited because I get to have Christmas with him, right? And there was this long battle. I didn't get to see him for a lot because, it's a long story. And I will tell that maybe I'll do a solo podcast at some point and just really just fucking let it hang. But so here comes Christmas. I'm struggling. So my point being is that there's all this pressure. I finally get to see him for the holiday. I finally won that part of the battle where I got to see him. Yeah.
And you feel like this is like a start of something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yet
you're putting the pressure on yourself. But I understand. Yeah.
But yet I'm trying to figure out, okay, what bills do I not pay so I can provide Christmas for these two kids who have watched Amanda and I go through the ringer with our exes. Well, not so much Amanda. I mean, I don't want to tell her story because she needs to tell that. And Maddox's dad was
someone
not
who can relate to it also, like is all you're saying.
Yeah. But I just remember the pressure, man, and the emotional struggle. And I'd be lying to you if I didn't look at you and say that there were multiple times where I was like, I can't fucking deal with this anymore.
Nope.
You know?
Multiple times.
And the only reason that I was able to tie a knot and hold on was because, believe it or not, when we talked about this on our first podcast that we did together, it was because of Jamie, and who committed suicide when we were fucking 10th grade. Yeah. You know, the only reason that I was able to kind of muster up some kind of strength to just take one more step forward was because I was like, I can't do that. You know, but the truth of the matter is it was in the forefront of my mind the whole time. Like, I don't know if I can deal with this shit, dude.
Well, because you're also facing being a failure, is what it feels
right,
like.
Because which
is like the worst feeling for me, anyways.
I've got this new relationship who I'm really excited about.
That you're trying to show the best side of 24/7. You're trying to show the best side of yourself to your kids 24/7. When really you fucking 48 hours and 24 hours feel like shit about yourself.
Yeah. I felt that I was a piece of shit human being.
Yeah. Well, because the court treats you like that, your ex treats you like that, sometimes your family treats you like that on top of it. Everyone's telling you you're a piece of shit, except for, your relationship. That would be, and at that point, you're just like it doesn't, not that it doesn't mean anything, but it's defeating. No, it is. I relate to that story so much. And like, what's even worse than that is like, I remember like not having them for the first Christmas and how defeating that was. Like, I remember I feel like I did everything right and I'm doing everything right. And I still don't get the benefit of like seeing what I'm paying for. Not even in that point, but like seeing like, oh, this is worth it because I get to see my kids wake up Christmas morning and smile. I don't even get the benefit of seeing that, unfortunately.
Yeah, you're right, man.
No, it's super defeating.
And this is so. And Shawnee, if you listen to this, man, I love you so much, kid. But I just want you to like. There's this one particular story that I gotta tell, and I'll never forget because it's like I feel like I took on so much bullshit because being the guy. Mm-hmm. Leaving the relationship, leaving my kids, all this bullshit, right? You've got all this emotional shit that you're taking on. I left my relationship, so I'm a failed spouse. I'm a failed father. I'm a failed this. I'm a failure. You're a
failed provider because the court thinks you're failing. Yeah, you're
exactly.
Literally every way possible.
So... And I want to preface by saying that there is no judgment here. I'm just telling the story as it is, okay? My ex gets to go on vacation, okay? So she's gone. Conveniently, that means that Sean is with me, which I want to also preface by saying that's never a problem.
Yeah.
But it's just the reality of the situation. Sean was a wrestler. And, he needed wrestling shoes. Well, wrestling started while she was on vacation. So now I'm paying support, right? And in my mind, the support that I'm paying goes to help provide for things like that. Mm-hmm. He comes to me in a panic while he's at my house because wrestling practice is starting. Mom's not home. She's gone on vacation. And he doesn't have wrestling shoes. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to figure out, how the fuck am I going to do this? Yep. How the fuck am I going to get this kid wrestling shoes so that he doesn't have to feel embarrassed when he walks onto the mat on Monday? Yeah. Because
you know what that feeling is like.
Too well.
Yep. And guess what? This is one story. How many times do you think you could probably come up with this story though that you dealt with?
Well, exactly.
You get what I'm saying? Like,
I do.
It's dude.
And it's hard because I know
It's one story, but dude, it's this is just one of a million times that we've had to deal with a situation like this.
And here's the thing that pisses me off, actually. Yeah. So now I'm going to go back on the other side of the emotion and say, so there's one part of me that my heart aches, but on the other side, it pisses me off because we figured it out and we got him his shoes. Yep. But I will never fucking get credit for that.
Yep. Nope. Yeah. Yeah. You don't get an award for it. You're expected of it.
Hey, and listen, I'm not asking for an award, but I'm asking for just a little bit of grace.
Nope, there isn't none of it. You're expected. It comes back to being a guy. You're expected to be able to do this, and that's all it is.
Yeah.
Where, no offense to not all moms, but like, how many times do you see on Facebook or know someone where it's like, oh, she's a single mother. Wow, I'm so proud of her. Like, and she does deserve all the grace in the world if she's a single mother and deserves it. But like, what about the guy that's like has custody and is dealing with a shitty mother or like?
No, you're right.
Something that I'm not even going to.
And that's what I'm.
But I'm saying, like, there's no also award on the other side
you're right.
of the aisle for the reverse of it. So,
no, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like, we've done so much work in certain areas, mm-hmm. which is why I brought up the GLBTQ community. Yeah. We've done so much work. And I'm not trying to discredit that,
no.
But that proves my point right there.
Yeah.
That there is let's not forget that there is a community of people who need support who aren't getting it still. So
Millions.
We've done so good over here, but
Millions
let's
of
not.
People.
Yeah.
And also, like, it also equates to like what's wrong with America as a whole is like. They're complaining that like we're on a population decline. It's like, well, why would you want to have kids if this is up more than a 50% chance of this is what's waiting for you?
Because the truth of the matter is, right, the generation that's now having kids are between our ages.
Yep.
Because, excuse me, I know that there's Jesus Christ, almost 20 years between the two of us.
Doesn't seem it.
It doesn't.
You're not a day past 30.
Fuck nah, man. Try me. No. I'm just kidding. No, in all seriousness, no, I understand. But yeah, man, it's disheartening. So anyway, I don't want to go down too much further down that rabbit hole. But you feel what I'm saying. You understand what I'm saying.
No, we relate, and I hope others out there do, and I hope this helps. And I hope if you're looking for someone to talk to, by all means, like,
dude,
there are support groups out there. Like I said, it is a losing battle, but it's like, unless it's talked about like this, it's not going to be known, because I can't tell you the amount of people I told my story or my side of things to, and they literally don't believe me because of how disheartening it is.
And that's my point.
Yeah.
That's my point. Like, there are other issues going on in the world outside of... I don't know how to put it, man, because I feel like no matter how I say it, because I'm proud that we're looking at these other issues. Yeah. I'm proud that we're talking about men's health, and I'm proud that we're talking about, but I think that there's also, like, let's not be ignorant to the fact that there are still, like, things flying under the radar, I guess. Does that make... I don't know how to...
Under the rug.
Yeah.
And which I haven't even touched on now. The biggest issue is government corruption, is why the government's even pushing for it, because they get paid off of this. It's all kickbacks. They get at least once a year, my whole support check goes to the government. How is that in the best interest of the kids? Why is $175 or however much I pay in support once a year getting kicked back to the government? Plus any fees if I make payments online, that's also kickback. So you're talking the more money that guys or women get put on child support now means more money to the government. Well, why wouldn't they put people on child support? That would be stupid if they didn't, right? So, like, that I think is part of the issue, is like there is government kickback. The more people you put on child support, men or women, the more money they might make in the long run or get kickbacks on.
No,
so I think
exactly
that is a big part of the issue that people don't understand. But I think a lot of the women, no offense to them, they're just going along with it because there's not a bad side for them.
No.
And I realize that's what my ex-wife's doing. She doesn't even understand half this shit because she doesn't need to, because why would she fight any of this? Because in the worst case scenario, she makes money.
Yep. No, you're right. Yeah. So in closing, dude, this is a and I don't want to end it, but at the same time,
it needs to. We can't beat a dead horse.
No, I know, man. And here's the thing, listeners. What I really hope that people gather from this conversation is that there is so much more still yet to be talked about. There is still so much more. I don't even know really where to go with it, other than to just say that there's still so much more. Like, we're just touching the tip of the iceberg.
Everyone struggles with something. So, like, you might feel alone in the struggle. Like, I did for a while.
Thank you.
But, like, it's not. Like, you went through it, and we went through it 15 years apart, and it's the same fucking situation.
No, I know.
So, like, there's tons of those situations. So, get out there and find someone to talk to.
And it's crazy how you coming in and talking about your situation. Like, I struggled today probably more than I have on any other pod, because it hit such a note for me. And I just couldn't believe how much, like you just mentioned, 15 years difference in us going through this, and how still it brings up emotional pain for me. I don't know any other way to put it, but it's still an emotional, like, there's still a thorn there. It's still raw, and my son's 25 now, and it's still raw, because there's things that I feel like I need to apologize to him for that are out of my control. And that's the part that saddens me. So, with that.
Yeah, if you're listening to this, you're not a failure. You're doing a good job. Keep on keeping on, brother. Like,
hey, man, thank you for picking up that. Yeah, we almost switched roles here.
Keep on keeping on, brother. Like,
that's right.
Because, like, sometimes, like...
No, it's true.
I'm saying that because I'm telling myself that, too. Ultimately.
No, man, you're right, though.
Keep on keeping on, man.
You gotta keep pushing. Vertigo Nation, if this is a conversation that struck a spark for you, if your head is spinning, then keep the conversation going. These conversations are meant to spark conversations for you to have with your loved ones or your trusted people, and that's why I love these conversations so much, because it gives us the opportunity to learn from one another. And I feel like, at least since COVID, we're lacking that. Make connections with people, check in on your brothers and sisters, man. And I don't mean blood brothers and sisters. I mean those people that matter to you in your life. Check in on them. Sit down and have a cup of coffee or a glass of whiskey or a Red Bull or whatever the fuck, man, and just sit down and have a conversation, and just do that thing, man. And of course, to you, I appreciate every time that you come in, man, because I appreciate these. Oh, fuck yeah, dude. Yeah, you are truly a brother. You are truly a brother, man. So I appreciate every time that you walk through the doors here, man. And the invitation is always open, and we don't even have to go live on a pod for that, for sure.
No, that's for sure. Yeah.
Anything in closing?
Nah, man.
No?
No, I said my piece for today.
All right. We covered it. All right, so the mics are going off. Andy and I are going to share another glass of whiskey. Y'all do your thing. Keep your head spinning. And thank you for joining the Vertigo Nation. Hey, and listen, if you've never been here before, thank you for finding me. If you've been here 100 times, keep listening. I won't let you down. Take care, be well, and take care of one another. Peace.